do what we intended to do, and plus some more on top of that. So it's kind of a blur. It's been 11 years of very fast action, not a lot of time to stop and reflect, to be contemplative about it. But essentially, we started in 2011, and the vision was to become, through a combination of M&A and organic growth, a $5 billion company. We thought that would be a kind of an aspirational goal that would give us a certain critical mass, a certain status in the industry. And fast forward to a couple of years ago, we were $18 billion in revenue. Now, you said currently, because I'm not going to be the CEO in a couple of months. Mario Harek's going to be the CEO. I'm going to be executive chairman, and I'm going to do another startup. So I'm going to start all over again.
Yeah. Well, let's pivot to that for a moment. And how did you prepare and choose your successors?
Well, it was an easy choice. In the case of Mario was the third person I hired back in 2011. And we both shared a vision right in the first interview of automating brokerage and replacing human involvement with technology. And in our most recent quarter, 80% of our loads in brokerage were either sourced or covered digitally with no human involvement. It was all machine to machine. Wow. That would have been 0% 11 years ago. So it's been a huge trajectory on that. So Mario was an easy choice because he's been involved with the business from day one. So he knows the business inside and out. He was also chief customer officer, so he knows customers. And he was also running our LTL business, our less than truckload business, which will be the pure play that XPO becomes after the spin. He's been running that for the better part of the last year and done amazing results. It was an easy choice. Now, I have two other leaders that have succeeded me. One is Malcolm Wilson, who's running running the company we spun off, GXO. Yes. It's the largest pure play contract logistics company, think warehouses and automated warehouses. And he was running that business for us before we spun it off. I acquired, quote unquote, Malcolm when we bought Norbert Dentressangle in Europe. And he was a senior executive there. And then he rose to the ranks here and did a fantastic job. And then the third successor will be Drew Wilkerson, who's going to run our XO, which is the truck brokerage business that we're spinning off. And Drew, I hired from C.H. Robinson, one of our great competitors. And he has a sales background, and he's been running that brokerage business for us for the better part of the last decade. And he knows the business well. Now, very interesting, Karen, very, very interesting. All three of these guys have very different demographics. One's from the UK, one's from Lebanon, the country, and the other's from South Carolina. So they're very different. They're different ages. They have different accents. They have different backgrounds in many, many different ways, but they have certain commonalities, certain thread throughout them that I get attracted to in a leader. They're super honest. You don't have to worry about interpreting what they're telling you. They're just very straightforward, lots of high integrity. They're also extremely hardworking. I don't have to make them work hard. I have to actually make them work less hard. All three of them are very, very married to the business, so to speak. And they're also very intelligent. And I like to hire people who are more intelligent than me. I like to be surrounded by people who are smarter than me, and they are.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. I know, as you know, so many companies struggle to find a successor when the very successful founder, CEO leaves the business. And it sounds like you have a plethora of people behind you who are ready to step in. So congrats to you and to them. You've started, if I read right, 5 companies from scratch. Each one has grown. You have grown into a billion or multi-billion-dollar company. Maybe it's 5 others. What are the major lessons that you would share for creating that kind of success and value in the world?
Well, I measure success on many different levels. One is shareholder value creation, because we're a for-profit business. So if we're staying true to our knitting, we're creating significant shareholder value. So, and the teams I've led have done that. We've outpaced the S&P 500 by 5.6 times at United Waste, by 2.2 times at United Rentals. I haven't calculated it for XPO, but I know I invested, and my friends and family invested at, and investors who believed in me invested at $7 a share. And today, including the share dividend for GXO, we're trading at about 15 times that, about $108 a share. So we've created a huge, huge amount of shareholder value. And I think that's the most important test for a CEO is, so how much value did you create for the people who actually own the company?
Right.
And so that's one thing, but it's not the only thing. The other thing that we did is we created companies that made sense for customers. Customers have a choice. Customers, we don't have a monopoly in any of those. We never had a monopoly in any of those businesses. So customers could choose to do business with us or choose to do business with someone else. They could choose to give us a big share of their spend, a big share of their wallet, or a small spend. So we positioned ourselves in ways that made ourselves valuable to the customers by listening to the customers, by analyzing the market, by figuring out what's the need that we're going to fulfill. What do we bring to the table? Like, what's our purpose? Like, why do we exist? What's going to get customers to wire money from their bank accounts to our company's bank accounts? And so we position the companies to fill needs that were gaps in the marketplace. We got together fantastic people. That's the critical ingredient in all this. Of course, you need a great industry and a great strategy, but you need fantastic people. You need people like Malcolm and Mario and Drew who can get along with each other and are going to kill the competition instead of each other, proverbially speaking. And that's what it's all about in the end, is putting together strong talent and talent that's collaborative, that's collegial, that gets along with each other and shares the vision of what our goals are, and then aligning compensation to that. You have to always think about what's in it for the person, and what's in it for the person in part is compensation. So we want to make people have maybe lower than average base salaries, but higher than average incentive compensation, with the incentives aligned with what's important for creating shareholder value.
Terrific. I love all of those, but I'm particularly drawn to the fact that you have good people and you value their ability to collaborate, because I think that's the only way really that a company can grow fast. And too often, I've certainly seen in my consulting business where groups just get out of alignment, and it's often because their goals are not clear or they're in conflict with each other, but they lose sight of how they're contributing to the overall picture of how the company grows. So
I agree.
yeah, you obviously developed a competency in doing that. So congratulations to you for all that success. In these organizations, you've made over 500 acquisitions, which I actually had to go back and just like double check, because that is an astonishing number of acquisitions for an individual to have made in a career. I know you didn't do it alone. You've talked about your team, but that's a lot of inorganic growth. What's your philosophy? What are your filters regarding acquisitions? And how do you make them successful?
Okay, well, that question is going to take the rest of the interview for me to answer. That's an important question, but I'm going to try to be succinct.
Okay, great.
So most roll-up strategies that are heavily dependent on acquisitions, on M&A, actually don't create a lot of value, because you need a lot of different ingredients, and you need all of those ingredients in order to create successful value from M&A. So first of all, you have to have the right kind of companies to buy. There has to be a compelling strategic reason of why we're buying this company. What is it bringing to us that we can't do ourselves? And how does it fit with the existing business? And will the cultures be compatible? How are we going to how are we going to integrate the technology? How are we going to figure out quickly where's the redundant headcount that needs to be exited gracefully and generously, but exited because it's superfluous? And who are the keepers? Who are the people that we really need to keep those people in order to be very, very successful, and then to give them appropriate compensation in order to motivate them to achieve the company's goals. So the first step is figuring out what are the right acquisitions to do and what are the acquisitions not to do.
Yes.
And our strategy has always been to look at lots and lots of deal flow simultaneously, so we can just cherry pick the very best one, as opposed to feeling we have a gun to our head because we're only looking at one or two deals and we want to do a deal. And so it may not be optimal, but we do it anyways. That we don't want to get into that place. You see sometimes people getting into that category, which is not good. And then you've bought the acquisition. That's the easy part.
Right.
The more challenging part is, okay, now you've got to integrate it. You've got to make that company part of you. It can't be two separate companies. And we rip off the Band-Aid. We integrate very, very, very fast, from an HR perspective, from a tech perspective, from a sales perspective, from a customer-facing perspective, from a culture. Now, our culture changes every time we do an acquisition. We don't impose our culture on the company we're buying. We're buying a company because they're great. And we like to keep and maintain those great qualities and cross-fertilize them to us, to the acquiring part of the organization. And we don't go into a company and arrogantly say, yeah, we know everything and here's how it's going to be. It's the last thing we'd want to do. And a lot of companies, a lot of acquirers make that mistake. They come in with a heavy hand, with a know-it-all attitude, and the people naturally feel disrespected, and a lot of them leave. And the ones who don't, they don't really get all jazzed up about working real hard and really, really well. So what we do more is ask questions and listen very respectfully, listen very carefully of what should we not change in this company? What made this company great that would be crazy to change? What's been your secret sauce? And on the other hand, what are some things about the company that you see that have not been good, that has been holding the company back, that should be done differently? And I found that people ask that. So many companies that we've bought over the years, management never asked them that.
Oh,
Management
no.
never asked them. So what do you think of the company? How are we doing? What can we do differently? What can we do better? They've just never solicited such valuable input from the people who are actually on the front line and at all levels of management. So people feel empowered, which they are. They feel respected. They feel cared for, and which is great. It motivates them, gets them engaged. And we benefit from, we don't have to pay a management consultant millions of dollars to help us figure out, okay, what do we do next? The company itself that we're acquiring helps us build the roadmap.
Yeah. No one knows better than the employees. And like you, I'm often shocked at the fact that no one asked them. David McCullough, who passed away recently, I'm sure you've read, said in preparing for one of his books, he spoke to, I think it was some sort of maybe a Secret Service agent, but someone who supported the president, and asked the question. This must have been for George H.W. Bush book that he wrote. Asked the question, tell him a little bit about the president. And he said the man went on and on and on. It was just all good information. And so he said, thank you for being so generous with your time and giving me this information, because, you must get asked this question a lot. And I appreciate. And the guy said, no one has ever asked me before.
Exactly my point. So even apart from acquisitions, Karen, we're always soliciting feedback from the organization. So we send out surveys, electronic surveys, to everyone who has an email. And we've come up with a way we can send it to the frontline workers who are not on an XPO email through an app. But so far, we've done email surveys to tens of thousands of people over the years, and we do them very, very regularly. And we just ask 4 simple questions. What's your employee status? What's your level of job satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10? And then the follow-up question is, well, if it's not a 10, what would make it a 10? What would make your job satisfaction a 10? And the information we get back on that is very, very helpful to see. And then we ask, what's your single best idea to improve the company? And again, tons of great ideas. And you see patterns, and you do word cloud analysis, and you can see how sentiment has changed, and you can see how different ideas are clustering around different parts of the company. Yeah. It's very, very actionable intelligence. And sometimes we just ask 3 questions, those 3 questions. And sometimes we ask a 4th question, which is, what's the silliest thing the company's doing? And that's a very important question to ask too, because inevitably we find out that we're doing a lot of dumb stuff. We're finding places there's waste, inefficiencies, things that aren't just perfectly laid out, processes wrong. And we can act on that. We can't act on it if we don't know about it. So by asking, we can find out about it. And they're anonymous surveys, so people aren't shy about speaking up.
That's great. I often hear from employees when they're asked those kinds of questions. That's us getting on our own way, right? That's the stuff that as an organization, we have complete control over, the silly things. I'm going to adopt your word going forward, because I think it's a great concept. I did just have a question from someone who's watching, Lisa Norrell from Virginia, which I think is sort of on point around the M&A conversation. And as I'm sure also you know, today's Wall Street Journal cover story talked about the decline in M&A activity due to the FTC's stronger antitrust posture. Are you seeing that at all in your industry? Has that been a factor for you in terms of acquisitions?
Well, we've not been very acquisitive for a few years now. We did one
Mm.
acquisition a couple of years ago. We did 17 acquisitions in a spurt over 5 years. And then we stopped and did integration and
Yeah.
optimization. So if you look at the really 18 companies that we bought on a pro forma basis, they were doing roughly about $1 billion of EBITDA.
Mhm.
And if you fast forward to today and look at it on a pro forma basis, those same businesses are doing about 2.2 billion, and that'll go up even higher next year. So we've improved the businesses that we bought quite significantly, and that's been very, very important part of the story. You can't just buy a company and continue as it is. Why'd you do that? You're not creating value. You have to buy a company that's going to improve the profitability going forward and make yourself more valuable to the customer. So in the company that we spun off last year that I serve as chairman of, I serve as chairman at GXO. We've done one acquisition. We bought a company called Clipper Logistics in the UK. It was the leading e-commerce fulfillment company in the UK. And we haven't started integrating it yet because under the UK rules, we have to run them separately until we clear all the government approvals. But that approval process is far along. So we're really looking forward to integrating that. So there's been some M&A activity. At XPO, I don't know that we'll be extremely acquisitive. I wouldn't rule it out. But after the spin, we'll have a pure play LTL company that's
Mhm.
got a lot of company specific, XPO centric opportunities to continue to improve the profitability like we've been doing over the last 5 or 6 years. So if we do M&A, it would have to be a great deal. It have to be at a great price and strategically sensible and give us density and
Mhm.
just bring something to the table we don't have, because when you do M&A, it's a lot of work if you do it right.
Yes, it
If you do it
is.
right, there's a large team of people doing integration, transformation, optimization, and those people, all you have is your time. And so, it's distracting time from improving the business by doing the integration of M&A. So it has to be really compelling. It has to be really
Yeah.
fantastic. So I don't know if we'll find something like that. We're not actively looking, but something may fall on our
You
head.
never know.
The company we're spinning off, Karen, was going to be called RXO.
Mhm.
RXO is going to be a pure play around truck brokerage. It's a tech-enabled truck brokerage platform. We could do some M&A there because there's some interesting acquisition opportunities in that business, but it's expensive when you buy companies in the truck brokerage. There's a scarcity of properties, and when they do come on the market, they're quite expensive. So what you pay for an acquisition is very, very important. That's the invested capital in return on invested capital in an acquisition. So you want to keep the invested capital as low as possible. You want to keep the
Absolutely.
purchase prices as low as possible. But I don't rule it out that we do there. But we've been growing at 3 times the industry in truck brokerage over the last decade. The industry's been growing at about 9% compounded annual growth rate. The company that Drew's been running, our
Mhm.
truck brokerage business, has been growing at 27%
Wow.
compounded annual growth rate. So literally 3 times the business. And that's due to the technology, that's due to the
Mhm.
people, that's due to the customer relationships, that's due to the culture I was
Yeah.
talking about before. We have a team approach to everything. I like cliches because cliches became cliches because they're
For a reason.
usually true.
Yeah.
And there's no I in success is a great cliche. And I love saying it all the time. And teamwork makes the dream work. We say it all the time. I don't care if it's a cliche, it's a good one. And Drew latched on to that in brokerage. And it's really a team culture there. It's a team
Mhm.
sport. And as a result of that, we've been pleasing customers, and that we've been growing at 3 times the rate of the industry.
Yeah. Phenomenal. I often say that a lot of people get paid to do an acquisition. Not so many people get paid to make it work. And that's why more than, I can't remember the exact number right now, but it's like 75% or more of acquisitions fail to deliver on the value. And you have taken a different approach to that. You pay a lot of people to make it work. And it's the idea going in. It is actually someone's jobs to make the integration successful. So I think these secrets, if you will, are not so secret, but they are the things that take discipline and hard work and process and a commitment. And you've obviously created that in your organization. So I want to talk just a couple of minutes, if you don't mind, about you. We've heard about the organizations. So it looks like every decade or so, you move on to the next new thing. And I'm curious, sort of, how do you do that? Sort of, I can see how you might gear yourself to say, okay, I've done what I can do here, time to hand it off, and now I'm going to go do the next new thing. But how do you figure out what's next?
Networking. I
Hmm.
talk to lots of friends, a lot of people in different industries, other CEOs. I talk to everybody. I talk to bankers.
Hmm.
I just get a lot of ideas. And then once one really seems really compelling and really attractive, and I can see a very clear path towards dramatic value creation, I just go all in.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, Karen, because in all the companies that I've started, when I was thinking about what my next big thing was and what I started exploring, where I ended the hunt wasn't where I started the hunt. So I
Ah,
didn't know I was going to land on transportation and logistics after I left United Rentals. I didn't know I was going to get in construction equipment rental and form the largest construction equipment company in the world when I was in the waste industry,
yeah.
having been in the oil that, and then got into United Rentals. So it's a process. It's a path, and I tend to start the process looking at large industries like healthcare, including bio, financial services, and fintech, real estate,
Hmm.
all things industrial, tech. My soft spot, my main core spot has been industrial services,
Hmm.
but I can be in other industries too, because industries are about people and
Right.
technology, processes, and growth, and creating a team that's focused on the same goals. So those are transferable skills in different industries. But I like industrial services. I like the grittiness of it. I like the fact that you can go and kick the tires and see
Yeah.
what's actually going on. So I'm going to look at a lot of different industries, but I don't know where I'll land. This is a very fun part of the whole 10-year process, figuring out what is that process going to, what is the industry going to be?
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. I think if you have a team, you have a playbook, and you have curiosity, there's almost nothing you can't do. And you've got those three for sure.
Karen, I'm going to zero in on the curiosity one.
Please.
That's a real good one
Hmm.
because, you know, you never want to get to the point, no matter how old you are, where you think you know it all, because you don't know it all. I certainly don't know it all. I totally don't know it all. I consider myself a student. I'm always learning. I'm always asking. I'm always studying. I'm always reading. I'm always picking people's brains. There's so much to learn. There's so much to learn. And even about specific businesses and specific industries, including industries that you've been in a long time. So I've been in several industries for, I've been doing this since I was 23 and I'm 66. I've been CEOs of companies all that time. I never mastered any industry, even after being in it for 10 years. I always had more to learn, always had more to understand. And it's constantly changing and evolving. So you have to stay very alert and humble about it. If you stay humble about it, you'll find answers.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Yeah. There's no steady state, that's for sure. And if we don't stay curious, you grow or decline, right?
Yeah.
There's another cliche that happens to be true
I like
because
cliches.
it's true. So my final question for you, Brad, the tagline for my business is up and to the right, because that is the spot on the 2x2 matrix where we always want to be. And I wonder if there was a moment earlier in your career when you knew that you were moving in that direction, into that upper right hand box on the matrix.
I've never taken for granted that we were going to be successful. I never took it for granted, even while we were successful, that we were going to continue to be successful. I always had in the back of my mind, we better stay sharp here because unexpected things can hit us
Hmm.
and things can go wrong. And that's kept us alert. That kind of anxiety and fear of failure has been a good thing. It's been healthy to have that in the culture and not take for granted that, we can rest on our laurels and we'll continue to be successful because things change.
Yeah, absolutely. You said earlier, just moving the company from 150 million to where it is today, had been a little bit of a blur. We certainly experienced that at Compaq, right, with our, at the time, fastest growing company in American history. And you can't say, oh, we're successful today, right? It's just that moment. You can appreciate it, but you cannot rest on your laurels. Thank you so much, Brad. I more than enjoyed our conversation, and I know that there's just so much in here that people will learn from. And when you write the book on creating value, we all want to read it. So thank you again for sharing with us, and take good care.
Thank you.